Peace, everybody. Today I'm trying to do this video dealing with empowerment, dealing with how to actually tackle so-called white supremacy as far as in relationship to so-called black Americans. Usually we have people on YouTube who are sensationalists. All they talk about is white supremacy. All they talk about is oppression. Their main focus is other groups of people and what they're doing to so-called black people. They never seldom talk about what we're doing to other people in retaliation, how we can retaliate economically, physically, spiritually, morally. We could always react and respond to situations, right? And the most efficient, easy, non-violent way to respond to oppression is non-cooperation. And a form of non-cooperation economically could include taking your money out of these Caucasian dominated banks. Take your money out of Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, US Bank, Bank of America, whatever other ones. Take your money out of these banks, PNC, because when it comes down to it, the average so-called black person who's on YouTube, a social justice warrior, or just a regular, get along, go along and get along, middle class, upper class black person. You could look at P. Diddy, Russell Simmons, or any one of them. Ask them, who do you bank with? Even the ones on YouTube. Go to Phil Scott, Tariq Nasheed, the top black white supremacy YouTubers. Ask them, who do you bank with? And I'm guaranteeing you, they're going to tell you US Bank, Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, or one of those. But they don't bank with black people. And the importance of banking with so-called black banks, I'm talking about the real black banks, not the ones who just a figurehead. Now, when you actually put money into the black banks, they will have the resources to reinvest into black businesses and black communities. This is how so-called Black Wall Street was built. This is how the Black Belt in Chicago, Bronzeville was built. This is how the so-called Negro Leagues was built, because we had institutions. We had black banks, and we ran a lottery policy. We had a different variety of ways to bring money into the community, and we put this money into the banks. And these black-owned, black-directed banks finance these prosperous institutions, these hotel chains, business chains. We made a lot of millionaires with these black banks. Now, we have at least 19 so-called black banks in America right now who, with the so-called gross domestic product of the so-called black people being upwards of $2 trillion a year. And Donald Trump was talking about putting $500 billion into so-called black banks. Even with the PPP loans, when Trump was the president, he allocated $20 billion just to go to black banks, because the so-called Caucasian-owned banks are not going to lend money to the so-called black people. Like me personally, my bank was US Bank. US Bank. And US Bank is cool when you're just dealing with it online on the app. But when you call up these people in Kansas, these racist, white, Caucasian devils, they let you know you ain't worthy, you ain't gonna get nothing. So I'm looking like, okay, let me take my money out of US Bank and let me search for a black bank to support, to put my money into, and to close my US Bank account, or to transfer my US Bank accounts to the black bank that I chose. And the black bank that I chose was a bank called Liberty Bank, located in 10 cities, who is headquartered in New Orleans, Louisiana. And the reason I like this bank was I have family origins in Louisiana, New Orleans, even though I'm in Chicago. But if half of the so-called Negroes in America, especially the ones who's wealthy, was to put their money into black-owned banks, you see, according to the FDIC, after the New Deal, after the Great Depression, really during the New Deal, they have something called fractional reserve banking, meaning that a bank could lend 10 times more money than what it has in reserves. So if so-called black people put $500 billion into black banks, they will have these banks will have $500 trillion to lend. I mean, I'm not 500 trillion, $5 trillion in lending power to black people when it comes to acquire. Really getting at, to tackle gentrification, we could do reverse gentrification by empowering these black banks so they could finance re-gentrifying our own communities, and we could gentrify other people's communities. We could take over their cities with these black institutions and these banks and these credit unions. The reason these so-called Caucasians have the spending power and the money to gentrify these black communities is because they use the so-called black people's own money to gentrify their community. Chase Bank financed these corporations. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank, they are financing your demise with your own money. All of the money in America that belongs to so-called Negroes and that so-called Negroes bring in revenue should be managed by black banks or black financial advisors or management companies, your retirement funds, everything. And that money should be used solely to empower so-called entrepreneurs, homeowners, students, whatever. That money should go directly towards refinancing the people who put the money in the first place. And this is a way to tackle so-called white supremacy. You see, Dr. Martin Luther King, he understood economic power, economic violence. Now, by him actually encouraging so-called black people to boycott Caucasian corporations, and at the time, even right now, the biggest population in America, as far as a single demographic, is so-called black Americans. Because when you look at the so-called white people, they're a myriad of different groups combined together, homogenized, to give the false illusion that they're a majority. But really, when you divide the so-called Caucasians into individual groups, you will see that each group is a separate nationality in a small population. This is why their vote is so dispersed, and the so-called black vote is so important, because the so-called black vote as a united bloc, because we are one group of people. And then the so-called black Hispanics, even though the black Hispanics is included in the Hispanic demographic, they also vote as black so-called Americans. So the number is actually higher than what they're showing, because they don't bunch the so-called black Hispanics with the non-Hispanics when it comes to demographics. So they get to show you these so-called minority groups, but in reality, the so-called black people is the majority group, and also collectively the richest group in the world. And this money should be going to black banks. And I have on this website a list of black banks that you could search for yourself, do some due diligence. Stop listening to these weak-minded YouTubers who come to you at a position of weakness. Listen to people with a position of strength, with an action plan to empower you and to empower yourself and to dominate and conquer the problems. Because any problem can be defeated and conquered with a solution. There's a solution to every problem. See, these black-owned banks and credit unions, right? Alamerica Bank, located in Birmingham, Alabama. Citizens Trust Bank, located in 50 cities across the U.S. Columbia Savings and Loans, located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Commonwealth National Bank has 2 locations in Mobile, Alabama. Broadway Federal Bank, SFSB, located in Los Angeles, California. Now tell that dude in California, do he bank with Broadway Federal Bank? That dude who put these movies out and get all of this money from y'all. Do this dude put his money in this black bank right here in California, Los Angeles? Carver State Bank, located in Savannah, Georgia. Columbia Savings and Loan, ASSN, located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Don't do this GN Bank, because this is a Ghanaian bank in Chicago, They acquired a black bank, a black credit union. These are Africans, so forget that GN bank. Because all the black banks in Chicago was acquired by either Caucasians, Indians, or Africans. We ain't got no black banks in Chicago. First Independence Bank, located in 2 cities in Michigan. Harbor Bank of Maryland, located in 3 cities in Maryland. This is the one right here that I got. Liberty Bank and Trust Company, located in 10 cities across the U.S., including Forest Park, Illinois, which is the west side, really Chicago. Forest Park is basically the west side of Chicago, between Maywood and Chicago. Forest Park. That's the one. That's my bank. I got rid of U.S. Bank because they some racist devils. Industrial Bank, N.A., has multiple locations in New York, Maryland, and New Jersey. Now, Industrial Bank, you people on the East Coast in New York, you need to take your money and put it in Industrial Bank. They're in New York, Maryland, and New Jersey. One United Bank, located in 3 cities across the U.S. This is also a bank I have. One United, because they had this campaign on Instagram when they had the Harriet Tubman cards. So I had to get one. So I have a saving account with One United Bank. Optus Bank, located in Columbus, South Carolina. You need to get to these banks. Mechanics and Farmers Bank, located in 5 cities in the Carolinas. Tri-State Bank of Memphis, located in Memphis, Tennessee. Unity National Bank, located in 3 cities in Texas and Georgia. United Bank of Philadelphia, located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Ain't no excuse for you not just, something that's so easy, requires you to do no violence. Take your money out of your current Caucasian-controlled bank and put it in a black bank. Transfer your mortgage, refinance your mortgage with one of these black banks. Your student loans, get one of these black banks to refinance your student loans, personal loans, and pay them the interest money. Because all it is about interest and interest rates. And let me click on Liberty Bank and Trust. This is my new bank. I'm transferring all of my accounts to Liberty Bank. And I'm gonna put more money into One United Bank. More money into One United Bank. And your Liberty Bank will be my main bank, because it's a black-owned bank. And all of the money I bring, all my revenue, instead of empowering U.S. Bank, I'm gonna empower Liberty Bank. And black people, so-called black people, need to do the same thing. Need to empower these black banks. Let me do this. Yeah, there you go. Liberty Bank. I'm running the internet off of my phone, my Wi-Fi, so whatever. But you see Liberty Bank has a website. Open an account. FDIC. This is a black bank. Put your money there and do something to bring about empowerment, instead of just sitting back listening to people talk about white supremacy and what the Caucasian male did. Look, smart business planning. Look at this lady right here. Beautiful lady right here. Explore our business lending options. A bank that will lend money to black people. Liberty Bank, which is located, headquartered in Louisiana, New Orleans. You see what I'm saying? Buy a home. It's a great time to buy a home. All of this. Look at this. Louisiana COVID resource update. You can apply now for accounts online. Apply for this account online, and you just transfer your money over. Really, you only to initially begin when you open an account with Liberty Bank. The limit to transfer from your previous bank to open an account is 500, and then they go through the whole process of verifying you. And then once you do that, you can begin transferring more money. But you don't want to transfer over 10,000. You don't want to transfer 10,000. Make sure you transfer under $10,000, because if you transfer 10,000, you will have to actually report that to the IRS. So do it in increments of under 10,000. Say you got 100,000, just transfer about 7,000-8,000 at a time. Or you could just transfer the whole 100,000 and just report it to the IRS. That's it. You just transferred that 100,000. Either or. But if you don't want to go through all of that, the law says it got to be under 10,000 without having to be reported to the IRS, as far as like transferring from a bank. But yeah, this is my message for today. Work towards your own empowerment and use your own, the things that you have, the levers that you have now should be the first point of action, because it doesn't require nothing to do it. You have bank accounts, you have money, put that money into a black bank. And on the massive, instead of going to buy these victim DVDs about buck breaking and white supremacy, and you collectively empowering this dude who's just make a living talking about how oppressed you are, yet this person probably don't even have a black-owned bank. So all this money you giving him is going to Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, and they're going to, whatever he say, he got $1 million in the bank, they're going to lend $10 million of his money to gentrify your community, because all of these banks lend up to 10 times more than what they have in reserves, fractional reserve banking. That's how they could acquire money to do the things that they want to do so easily, because they take the money that you put into their bank and they lend out 10 times more to the people to oppress you. They finance your destruction. That's what they do. They give out credit, they give out loans to everybody except you. So that has to end. At least put the money into a black institution so they can have more freedom and more options when it comes to empowering the black community. Because now the black banks are suffering because the so-called black people believe the grass is greener, the Caucasian-controlled banks are better, and that's it. It's a name brand thing. It's like an Apple. People think Apple is better because it's a fashion statement. Like Louis Vuitton, like you think Gucci and Louis Vuitton is better than a so-called black-owned designer. Even though it's all cotton, it's all leather, it's the same materials, polyester, acrylic. You know, it's just the psychology is you believe that one is better, and you believe that a non-black institution is better than a black-owned institution. This is what you believe. You believe a Caucasian-controlled bank is better. A lot of times you don't even know that there are black banks. Like in Chicago, when I want to get my tires done or I want to get some mechanic work done, I could do mechanic work myself, but I like to support the black businesses. You could search on Google and find a black-owned business that does exactly what you need. Even insurance. But I got a black mechanic, tire shop, restaurants. See what I'm saying? You could put your money into these black-controlled businesses. And that, if you do that on a massive scale, you will see the changes. It's like when Trump was giving black people all of this money from the SBA. You see the change. You see the people living better. Crime drops. People have better things. People are in a better mood mentally because they have access to capital. More access to capital. And you could do the same thing with your money. Put it into a black-owned institution and watch the changes happen. And that's about it for today.